All right, welcome back everybody. I hope you all got out to grab a bite to eat. So this is going to be such a highlight for us today. New Orleans. I mean, we just had this panel on celebrity music cities in the room before lunch. I think there's probably no more iconic than New Orleans. And not unlike many of you, I'm sure, I've been completely charmed by New Orleans. I had the privilege of staying in the Treme district the first time there, in the heart and soul, I think, and meeting some of the individuals who've made New Orleans what it is today. I wasn't alone in that experience. I saw some nodding from Joss and Kate. I had to pinch myself at times that I was in their company. And my introduction to the city, music and venues, wasn't as a tourist per se, but with the curatorial guidance of some of the people in this room. I can't think of a better introduction. So I felt really privileged to do that. It's a complex cultural place, completely alluring, and I'm thrilled that Ashlye Keaton, co-founder of the NOLA project and co-founder of Music has curated this panel for us. So take it away, Ashlye.
Thank you. So wonderful. Yes, it is. Well, thank you, Amy, for having me here today, and thank you, Music Policy Forum, and thank all of you, the audience attendees, for being here to listen to us. I am very delighted to be on stage with three of my family members, my extended family members, along with some of the other family members I have in the room, because that's how we roll in New Orleans, right? And that's one of the reasons why I chose these three wonderful people to be on my panel, because we all work together in conjunction with efforts to galvanize and nurture the New Orleans cultural community through different roles that we have, not only personally, but within our organizations that we're associated now and have been in the past. Because although I run the NOLA project and Chief Howard is a Mardi Gras Indian, and Jordan here is the director of A Closer Walk, and we'll get into what all this means. And Melanie's with WWOZ. We've also been very much involved in other organizations over the years. In fact, Jordan here was the director of an organization called Sweet Home New Orleans, which was a hurricane relief organization that helped musicians and culture bearers return to the city following Hurricane Katrina. There we go. And he played a very critical role in helping to relocate or locate the musicians and the culture bearers back to the community. I really don't know what it would look like without those efforts. So every time I have the opportunity to acknowledge that and thank him, I do, because it just meant so much to our community. So thank you. But going back to the subject matter of our panel, we're here to talk about, again, how we collectively and individually through our organizations serve to galvanize our cultural community. So I'm going to start by just doing a brief introduction to the panelists, because they are going to present on their organizations, and then we'll get into some questions that I have for everyone, and we'll make this pretty informal, because that's how we roll. So I want this panel to be as authentic to and as reflective of New Orleans culture as possible. So again, Chief Howard is the big chief of the Creole Wild West, the oldest and largest Mardi Gras Indian tribe in New Orleans. He's also the president. You look so serious. He's also the president of the New Orleans Mardi Gras Indian Council, which he can tell you about in a few minutes. And he happens to be the NOLA Project board president. I'm the co-founder, along with Jean Maneri, who moderated the panel earlier, of the NOLA Project, and I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. Jordan, again, is the director of A Closer Walk, and he'll tell you more about that. And Melanie is the community. What's technically your title? Stewardship and Donor Engagement. She's the OZ person. She's the WWOZ 90.7 FM. It's our local community radio station. And I'm actually going to start with Melanie. She's going to tell you more about WWOZ and why it is so important to New Orleans, and how it acts as a cultural hub for a lot of the activity that arises in connection, not just with music, but with culture. So I'm going to have you present first, and then we'll go from there.
And I've actually got a presentation, so I will, here we go. Again, my name is Melanie. I am so honored to be here, and I feel like representing OZ is a little like representing New Orleans, which is something that's almost impossible to do. But I'm going to do my best to share with you about the station and how it became what it is today, and some of the ways that we are working to support the music and cultural community of New Orleans. So WWOZ is a volunteer-powered, listener-supported community radio station. That means that all of our DJs, all of our 70 regular air shifts are filled by volunteers. They come in for a couple hours a week, they prepare at home, they're all unpaid volunteers. And as a listener-supported station, over half of our budget is raised by listener support, by members, by major donors. And as a community radio station, we're going to talk about all of these more, but we're at the very heart, both physically and emotionally, of the music community in the city. The station was founded in 1980 by these two, Walter and Jerry, above Tibutina, is an iconic venue in the city. And if you look up at those windows at the top there, like, those were all apartments. The station was founded in a teeny tiny apartment, and they used to drop a microphone over the stage at Tibutina's to record live music and then play that back on the airwaves. So putting live music, local music on the air has been a part of the station's DNA since the very beginning. There was no staff, no budget, it was all volunteers. I'm going to say that over and over again because it's just so important. So the mission was to put New Orleans music on the airwaves. When they got started, there's a lot of music coming out of the city, but local music that wasn't popular around the country wasn't playing in New Orleans itself. So very early on, how the people started forming, it gathered a lot of energy and momentum. So this is from 1983, just a few years after the founding, and in this photo is Ernie Cato, Bobby Mitchell, Bob French, and Hayes and the Delta Ramblers. These are just iconic musicians, and they're also folks, some of them are still on air today, 38 years later, which is just amazing. The station moved to a slightly larger space. This is called the Treehouse. And the reason this is important, it's tiny, you can see how small it is, and it's located right here. It's in Treme, it's right in the center of the city, and it was so easy for people to get to. So the musicians could swing by, jump in and out. Here we have Dr. John and George Porter Jr., and people were able to, in this location, it was right at Armstrong Park, which is next to Congo Square, where jazz music always got its start. People could come in and out, and it became this space that people could flow through, and you never knew what to expect when you were tuning in. The hosts, it was really, you really never knew. You could hear someone clobbering up the stairs, and someone would pop on air that you were not expecting. Some of these early hosts are Red and Teddy and Brown Sugar, who Bob Dylan wrote about in his chronicles. Bob French and Ernie Cato, the R&B singer. And I've got one little sound clip. I feel as a radio station I should have more, but here's an air check, a station ID from Ernie Cato.
Come on, this is WWOZ radio station, 90.7 on your radio dial. And you listen to the one and only Ernie Cato.
Yeah, we still play that one. You hear that one on OZ all the time still. But now we're getting into the show hosts of today. So like I said, we have 70 DJs or show hosts. Each of them come in every week. They're bringing in their own vinyl, their own albums, their iPod, their computer. And they have all of our shows. They have got genre guidelines maybe, but not much more than that. So the hosts get to really bring in their own personality, their perspective, their knowledge. We have a phone line that is ringing constantly, and hosts are having conversations with callers. The hosts that are on in the middle of the night are talking to people in Australia, all around the world. There's always somebody listening. And it's very real. And I love this photo. It's the first group photo that's been taken in years. And the station is so much more than any one person. It's made up of so many different people and ideas. And because we have this open door policy that's stayed open, you're going to see a picture of our little open door later on. That's created this space that it's made OZ a source of, it's a place where musicians come to promote their gigs, where nonprofits come to talk about upcoming events. It's been available to everyone for a very long time. Really quickly, the genres that we play, we have trad jazz, the New Orleans Music Show is everything that's been created in New Orleans, that's being created now. So it could be anything, you never quite know. Of course, the blues and contemporary jazz, 50s R&B, a lot of songs from Alan Toussaint and from Dave Bartholomew, and then the kitchen sink every weeknight, and then all these other shows over the weekend. And the Cajun Gynecoastal on Sundays is half in English, half in French. You never quite know how it's going to flow. And again, coming back to live music, last year alone, we broadcast 185 live sets. That's in our studio, that's at festivals, that's in venues. That's putting over 800 musicians on the airwaves and connecting them with audiences both globally and around the world. Speaking of that, so who's listening to OZ? We have 113,000 weekly listeners. That's about 83,000 who listen via our terrestrial signal over the radio waves, and then another 30,000 who listen digitally, whether that's via our website, any of our apps. So that's all 50 states, 8 provinces. I looked that up yesterday. Ontario actually has about 9,500 people listening every year, in 185 countries. So WWOZ is this tiny station in New Orleans that has this appeal that's so much bigger because it's such a special station and because the music coming out of New Orleans is unlike any other. And radio, we've been talking today about the collective power of music, and like radio has this special ability to kind of whisper into your ear and to make you feel a part of a place no matter where you are. And OZ does that phenomenally well. I feel very lucky to be a part of it. So here's a map of our listener hubs. So these are just concentrations of listeners around the country and around the world. There's a, let's see, and this is Tanya Hall, or Tank of Vegas, and so this was from 2013. It was the first time she played at OZ, the first time she played on live radio, and of course, now she is exploding. But what's so fun about this is she came back and told us that she played a show in London, and this guy came up to her with a really thick Parisian accent, wearing a WWOZ t-shirt, saying, I'm here because I heard about you on WWOZ, which is just amazing, and stuff like that happens shockingly regularly. Let's see, and so here's our little open door. The door to the studio is open. People walk in all the time. People pop up who have been listening to OZ for a long time, and they see our sign down in the French Market and wander on up. The station is very much open, and it creates this incredible sense of kind of community and flow that has been, like, for me, incredibly nurturing, and for a lot of folks, it's this platform that gets their music and their message out, and is able to help the cultural community stay connected. People know they can come to OZ when they need to promote an event or when they want to talk about an initiative they have coming up. So as a listener-supported station, during our membership drives, we have a couple of quotes that people have called in when they pledge to support the station. And all these photos at the bottom are from during our membership drives. Each membership drive, we have at least 40 live bands come into the station to play in support of OZ. So I'm just going to read a little bit of a few of them, but all you have to do is listen for a minute and you can feel the love. The heart, soul, and culture of New Orleans reaches audience far and wide around the world, thanks to the dedicated men and women who volunteer their time, expertise, and music collection. Literally, the background of my existence. WWOZ is a constant part of my world. I really enjoy the live performances, and she says many times I have purchased a ticket or downloaded a track because I heard an artist live on OZ. And the very heartbeat of New Orleans. OZ is so much more than a radio station. So one of our taglines at OZ is Guardians of the Groove. And the way that we think about this is that every single person involved, whether you're an on-air volunteer, a front desk volunteer, a musician, culture bearer, you are a part of this network that is guarding the groove. We're in it together, we're a part of something really special, and we are we're making a space to keep everything, for people to come together and to share on a much wider scale. Like when you're in the studio, you're sitting by yourself, but there's an average of 5,000 people listening at any given time. And we hear from people, and that's what it's in it's just like the Guardians of the Groove. It can be a little bit cheesy sometimes, but it's very genuinely heartfelt, and it's something that invites everyone to be a part of it in whatever way you might be able to. So I've been touched a little bit about some of our programming, and now that hopefully I've given you a sense of how the station grew into what it is, and now I'm going to talk a little what we're doing to promote and make space for what's happening in the city now. So the Livewire is our music calendar. It's the go-to resource in the city. It's on air at the top of every odd hour we have it. There's so much live music, it takes anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes to go through the whole thing. But this is what's happening just tonight in the city. There's Russian Mafia Band, there's trad jazz, there's blues. This is a show at an old hall across the lake, and we have some Latino music. Taking It to the Streets is it's an on-air and online resource. It's our Social Aid and Pleasure Club and Mardi Gras Indian coverage. Chief Howard will talk a lot more about, of course, Mardi Gras Indians, and this is a whole conversation that could be a whole panel in itself, but a Social Aid and Pleasure Club second line is, as Ashlye Jackson, our host, calls it, a rolling block party in a lot of ways, and it happens at a different location every week around the city. So on this website, we have information, we have both upcoming calendars, there's a podcast where Ashlye brings officers from the clubs to come in and document their stories, their perspective. And then it will help people find the route sheet to figure out where the parade will be this weekend. And so this is just a look at our website. So in terms of what we're doing to provide a resource and kind of engaging in the community, like this is the every single Sunday. Parade's happen every Sunday, so you can see these peaks year long of when people are coming to the site and using it to check in and find out where to go and what's happening. Our social media, like OZ, in terms of audience engagement, has really, wow, that was exciting, has invested a lot in social media over the last couple of years. We actually have a full-time staff person, I think, before a lot of other orgs in town did. And seeing the engagement grow, especially during times like Jazz Fest, has been just incredibly exciting, and it's been a new way of connecting. We see a lot of people from out of town who are picking up on new music and learning about seeing different stories coming out thanks to social media. And OZ Video, much inspired by KXP in Seattle, OZ started investing in video a couple of years ago as a new way to share content and engage new audiences. And in the 2 years that we've had a video department, over 400 live sets have been captured, whether it's in our studio or beyond. And sometimes a video team can go places that the audio RV broadcast track can't. Here we partnered with the Ella Project, and we live streamed a forum that they were hosting for mayoral candidates last year. And thanks to the live video stream, another 3,500 people were able to hear what the candidates had to say that wouldn't have been able to if they weren't able to go to the panel that day. And this was just last weekend, like after Jazz Fest, there was a show going on that our broadcast truck couldn't have gone to. They were exhausted, but our video team was able to get out there and get these 3 amazing female vocalists onto Facebook and have their performance out there. School Group is a program where young students and brass bands and jazz bands come to the station. They get the exact same live music experience that Dr. John or Thomas or any of our live bands would get coming in. A lot of students, like when we come in and ask what they know about New Orleans music, like really don't know that much. So it's an opportunity to give them, they get to play live on air to our audience, get to talk about why they love music. It promotes music education in New Orleans, which is severely underfunded. And so each band that comes in gets a $1,000 grant to support whatever the band director feels they need best. And then you may know that New Orleans is in our tricentennial, we're celebrating our tricentennial. No one knows the exact date, but we're somewhere in our 300th year. And OZ's been doing a series of every week releasing 2 brand new music moments. So tricentennial music moments are short audio documentaries that are highlighting different areas of our musical history, from Monkey Butt Hall, where Buddy Golden played, Steve Boucher's first show when he was 9 years old, and to Cleo and Joe, who were some of the first Cajun musicians to be recorded. And so one of the last things I'm going to talk about is WWOZ at Jazz Fest. So we're the only radio broadcaster to be out at Jazz Fest every year, and we've been doing this since I think 1992. It's been built into our identity. It's a 7-day festival. We broadcast 38 acts. At the festival, we have 200 volunteers who are part of our, we run this, so here in the bottom left you see 2 of our show booths who are interviewing Pedro Martinez, and in that tent is it's a crew of Brazilians, of WWOZ fans from all over the world who come to Jazz Fest and hang out in the OZ tent. So Jazz Fest represents this opportunity to gather together as a community of music lovers and also to broadcast out. It's our biggest listening time of the the year, not only on OZ, but about 7 or 8 different stations pick up our stream and put New Orleans music even further out there. So it's an incredibly exciting time. We're just coming out of that, and everyone's probably a little depleted from Jazz Fest. But it's one thing that OZ is known for, and OZ in a lot of ways is Jazz Fest 365 days a year. So people who come to the city and fall in love with Jazz Fest, they take OZ with them, and so they continue to feel a part of the city. So very quickly, this is my OZ story. About 8 years ago, I was living in the mountains in this little cabin with dial-up internet, and I started streaming OZ. I had never heard it before, but within a couple months, I decided to move to New Orleans. It was that, it got me. New Orleans, much like OZ, either you get it or you don't, and it helped me. And I sat there looking across the country and decided to go for it. I moved to volunteer with OZ, and luckily they kept me. I do work at the station. I am not on air other than to ask for money. I work in the development department. I leave the spreading of musical genius to those who think that way. And so, how do you tune in? On our website, you can listen online. We have an app on TuneIn, and there's all this incredible video content that you can see. And there's one more audio clip coming up here in the last slide. I hope we've got one more station in need, Dr. John. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're right. This is Dr. John, and you listen now. WWOZ 90.7 FM on the radio dial. If you're checking in, you will leave with a funky smile on your face. You gotta listen in the right place at WWOZ 90.7 FM.
That was awesome. That was so great, and it was so fun to hear your story, and it moved me. I started crying a little bit, sorry. I think that we all get emotional when we talk about our city because we love it so much. I mean, we have what I would like for you all to take away from the panel today is what is working in New Orleans. And what we're talking about today is the work that we're doing that is helping maintain the city that we love so much, that we get so emotional about. So, Gene, you got emotional. I mean, we all do. We've been hearing from folks all day, and I don't think it's any great shock to anyone that our city's pretty busted. It's broken. It's as broken gets. There's no significant public funding for the arts or music. Government is pretty corrupt. It's just known for that. And yet we still have, despite all that adversity and all the challenges that we have in our city, we have such a thriving cultural community. And I mean, looking at Melanie's PowerPointer alone demonstrates that. I mean, OZ does so much, and we're all involved with that. And almost every slide, I can tell you a story about a person that's involved, with what we're doing. Like Craig Klein is the trombone player for Ponderosa. He hosted a dinner for Jocelyn and her husband from San Francisco for a conference, and is on our board, and has been to many of Michael Brace's conferences, and we're just all very much connected. So that's what I want us to focus on, because we all know how New Orleans is broken, but I want you to know that despite, in Detroit especially, despite the infrastructure or lack thereof, you can work together to really build and maintain a thriving cultural ecosystem. So thank you for your presentation. And Chief Howard, I don't know how you're going to do this succinctly, but please try to explain to the room what it means to be a Mardi Gras Indian. And just try.
I'll do my best.
I mean, he does a very good job of this, but it's so difficult to do in just a few minutes,
Time is short, but I'll try to make sure that
You want to lift the mic up?
touch some points so you get an idea about what we're doing. Mardi Gras Indian culture is one of truly the greatest kept secret in America and throughout the world today about this culture. This culture dates back to the late 1700s, early 1800s. We were runaway slaves that found safe haven with the indigenous people that was here already in New Orleans, allowed us to practice our African culture and be ourselves. Now, yes, I am part Native American. I am, my grandmother's a Cherokee, but this is not what we're doing when we put the suits on. We are practicing Africa because to us that who are involved in this culture, to our ancestors, we're trying to hold some African culture intact. So we was found ourselves with the indigenous people there. They had similarities of how we lived in Africa. They wore feathers, we wore feathers. They wore paint, we wore paint. They had a witch doctor, we had a medicine man. So it was, the culture was similar. So it was easy for us to be a part of that. And this culture was born out of struggle, misunderstanding, torture. Anything you could imagine that was bad. Through that came this. After years of practicing this here, we was around before the Mardi Gras even had an approach. Mardi Gras Indian is a spiritual expression of who we really are. And it's also is a creative expression. You see these suits that we wear, it takes a whole year to build them. They're made by our hand, they're hand sewn, every piece that you see.
Can you stop for just a second? Can we get an image of the, yeah, can we show them the video? And
Sure,
go get
sure.
back to that so they can have a frame of reference?
Right. So I can, yeah.
Good.
Each neighborhood are represented by a tribe.
It's the spy boy. The spy boy, he's out leading the tribe, searching for other tribes. As the spy boy going out there looking for other Indians and all, he's out there playing his part. Plus, he's giving a signal to his chief and his flag boy to let him know that gang is coming. Gang coming this way, gang coming that way. And it's going to go to the flag boy who represents the gang by carrying the flag of the tribe. And he's going to sit and signal on back to the chief that what's going on up the front. You have the wild man who's making sure that all orders are carried out. And when the chief gets an order, he's going to say who he wants to meet first. He's going to meet them one by one. The queen, she is a chief helper. She's a nurse for the young ladies that's in the tribe, the young girls that's in the tribe. She's a helper for them, possibly one day to take over her position.
Mardi Indian now today is one of the only organizations we don't have a route, we don't need a permit.
Oh, okay.
If I'm going
We're
south,
good. I think we're good.
and I see some.
I didn't realize there was.
To give you a little bit of example of when we come out, what it's about, how we come out, and the tribes come down the street. And basically, when we first started this year was to uplift the hopeless people, the downhearted people that didn't have Mardi Gras, couldn't go to the carnival because of our color, our skin. So when we had this year action going on in our neighborhood, in our community, to just uplift it for a small period of time with the spiritual expression, because spiritual touches everyone. And we believe that through the years that we have started to be accepted somewhat, but at times we wasn't accepted there at our home in New Orleans. They look down on us and they want to have anything to do with us. But then they would take our image and put them in books and magazines and send them all over the world and say, come see the Mardi Gras Indians in New Orleans. But yet they didn't want to have anything to do with us. In 1898, it was discovered who we were, because Mardi Gras Indian was a secret society and didn't talk about it to nobody. You didn't know who we were. Just seen us on Mardi Gras Day, Super Sunday in St. Joseph, because we didn't want them to know what we were doing, because if they would have known, they would have stopped us a long time ago, because everything in America, especially in the southern part of America, about Africa was forbidden. You couldn't talk about Africa. Once you mentioned Africa, you couldn't use African name, you couldn't use no praise. But we was able to walk under the disguise of the indigenous people that was in America and practice our culture and be able to express our culture. And for over 100 years, they didn't know who we were. They thought we was Native American. First, the indigenous peoples that was there, they called us slave children. So we were living with them, and they knew about us and knew how we got there and what was going on. Later on,
And you call that masking, right?
that's our culture name, is masking, meaning putting on the suit. Because Mardi Gras, everybody can mask up. You can be whatever you want to be on Mardi Gras, and there's no question. So that gave us an avenue. Because even though we was already there, but we were secretly there. But that gave us an avenue to mask up and come out on Mardi Gras Day, because everybody's masked up. And practice our culture, go in the neighborhood and uplift people with some spiritual uplifting. And still today, when we go out, it's basically the same thing. When we go out, even without them even knowing that spiritual is taken over because of the practices that we have been doing. So when we go out there, and when the people see us, as you see there, they're all happy, all joyful. Everybody's in a dancing party mood. For a small time, it would make them just forget about the problem that we were going through there.
So there are 3 days where you all celebrate, well, not when you celebrate, but where you practice the rituals in connection with your culture. It's Mardi Gras, Super Sunday, and St. Joseph's. Right.
3 days. We come out Mardi Gras. St. Joseph was a day that our elders were looking for long before I started practicing this culture, to celebrate another day. And they thought about Easter, they thought about Halloween, New Year's, and none of that didn't fit. But in our neighborhood, in our community, the Italians who was there, they were celebrating St. Joseph. And they would have food in the altar out. And so they said, that sounded like a good time to come. So we started coming. They accepted us because they allowed us, when we started coming, it gave them another piece of celebration with the tribes coming out. So we was invited to come and eat with them, drink with them, celebrate with them, and go on. And that went on for quite some time. It still goes on today, even though we have less Italian in our neighborhood than we had in there.
Right, so this community binding has been going on for a very long time.
Yes.
Can you tell them quickly, because not too quickly, but can you tell them what it takes to create the suit?
Oh, well. First, you must be very
The mask.
patient.
It's a pretty big mask.
You must be very patient. And it takes money, time, and energy. We like to say blood, sweat, and tears.
Can you describe what the suit making process is? What is it?
Well, as I said earlier to the people, that we make these hand, everything is done by hand. And each bead that you see, or stone that you see on the suit, even the feather that you see, all of it has been through a needle. It has to pass through that needle in order to create that. The smallest bead goes on the needle, one at a time.
And how long does it take you to do that?
It takes actually a year, 9 months to a year to complete one. It depends on what you want to look like when you hit the street.
And who's the prettiest?
Of course I am.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you some other questions here.
Yes,
Go ahead, finish up.
I've been a part of it now. It's going on 50 years. I came into it when I was a kid, about 9 years old. The feathers in the marigold drew me to it, but the spirit of the chant grabbed me and wouldn't let go. And that's what really, really captured my imagination to be a part of this, where the chant, the music is, to me, is very strong, and it's a carrying thing. Because once you put these suits on, they are heavy, they weigh mine's about 80 pounds or so. And I have to walk the streets with it, and we have to go most of the whole day. And I am transformed, and the music helps transform me into who you are, what you're supposed to be, and it gives you the spirit to carry that, the chant. Once we start the chant, and the repetition of that chant over and over and over and over, saying the same thing over and over and over and over, it started to become, you don't even know that you're going this far, these miles. You don't even realize that the weight that you carry, because you have been transformed to that mode, so you're just going.
And how did you become become a Mardi Gras Indian?
Well, my family, one time we lived in one part of the town. And the part of the town that I was living on, we wasn't exposed to black culture. We were exposed to mostly Italian and Irish culture. And my father lost his job, and we had to step back a peg, and we moved into the culture neighborhood. And when I remember my first day, I woke up there, and they were just so excited. Everything was so busy, going. I said, whoa, this is really something. And I had a friend of mine that was taking part in this. Uncle was chief of a tribe, and he lived right around the corner from me, and I wanted to be a part of it. And I would go around, but I couldn't go in the gate. They wouldn't even let me in the yard because, like I explained to you earlier, it was a secret, and nobody was talking about it, and was sharing none of the information with you. But I would go every day with my friend, stop at the gate, found I got in the yard, and then one day I got on the porch, and I was able to look through the screen door and see all this magic taking part. And it started to rain, and it was thundering and lightning, and it was raining hard, but I still was standing there looking. I didn't even believe it. I realized it was raining. And the chief said, "Is that boy still on the porch?" And somebody said, "Yep." He said, "Tell me, come on in out of the rain." That's how I got inside. And so when I got in, and I'm sitting there, man, and everything was so amazing. And he knocked over some beads. And I said, "You want me to get that up for you?" He said, "You can do that?" I said, "Yes." I got the room, and I started sweeping. I got all the beads up, and I just started sweeping up the room. And I would come every day. He said, "You want a mask, son?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You could sew?" I said, "Yes," but knowing I couldn't, but I said, "Yeah, I can sew." So he said, "Well, come back next year, and we're going to get you started." And Mardi Gras was that Tuesday, that Wednesday, I was at his house. He said, "Get away from here, boy." And I said, "Yeah, come on, man, come back here later on. It was just Mardi Gras just yesterday." But I came the next day, and the next day, and the next day anyway. And so that's how I got started into it.
And how long have you been masking?
Well, it's coming up on 50 years now.
It's going to be your 50th year. That's a hell of a thing.
That I've been a part of this culture now. I never thought that I would be, but my first 10 years, I just was learning how to present this culture when I get on the street and learn how to sew.
And how old were you when you became a chief?
I was about 18 years old when I became a chief. 18 years out of high school, and we didn't have, because at the time my chief was murdered, and then the following year or so, the next guy was he murdered somebody, so he was sent to prison. And so I went and participated with another tribe, and they had a meeting. They said, "Well, we all coming back together, and we like to talk. We're going to bring the tribe back." And I said, "Oh, good, because this was my first tribe. This was my home. This is where I got all my feathers from. This is where I got my teachers. For sure, I'm going to be back there."
And that's how you became the
so
chief Creole Wild West, right?
As I was back there, we came together, and they said, I asked, "Who's going to be the chief?" Because who's going to be the chief? Glad. They said, "You are." I said, "Well, no, not me." So yeah, so they said, no, don't make me. They said, "Yeah, you got to."
So that's how you became chief of Creole Wild West.
I became chief of the Apache Hunter tribe before I became chief of the Creole Wild West.
Okay. So Chief Howard, I told you I was going to do this, and I know that I'm irritating you right now. So, but
Okay.
you're gonna forgive me at some point.
Okay.
Okay. So everyone loves this story, and you could talk all day. And we wish you
Really?
would. But I need you to explain to them quickly what the Mardi Gras Indian Council is, and then we're going to get back because I've got some other questions for you.
Sure.
Sorry.
The Mardi Gras Indian Council is an organization that has all the tribes that are part of around the city. We have about 34 tribes that take part in this here culture around the city. And that's all of us coming, all the chiefs come together as one to make decisions on our culture, which way we want to go, and hold our own destiny instead of having others doing it for us.
And why did you all form?
Well, mainly we had problems while we formed.
What kind of
One of the
problems?
problems, please, I got it.
Can you tell we all know each other pretty well?
Yes, this is my sister here. We do this all the time, but
All the time.
but,
I knew it was gonna go like this.
but yeah. But we had a big problem in St. Joseph night, because I explained to you all earlier that we hadn't always been accepted in the city. Let me just touch on a couple of things before I get to that. We have an organization in our city also known as the Zulus, and they dress up like Rex, wear dresses, and they parade, but they dress like Zulus, but they'll do a formal thing like Rex do. Now, for years,
He's talking about some of the carnival crews. Well, they don't have any reference for Zulu and Rex right here.
y'all understand what I'm saying? There's a common crew also, but they were Zulu, it's called themselves Zulus, just like Rex. And so when it came about, people would want to see them, but they was basically in our neighborhood. And they would tell the people, no, you don't want to go back there because you can cause problems, you may this or that, but we have what they call the most famous trophy of Mardi Gras, the Zulu coconut. And everyone who comes to New Orleans, they basically would like to take that trophy back with them. And so they agreed to go on St. Charles Street. They come out, leave out of our neighborhood and go on St. Charles Street. Well, we was approached also. We refused because that is not what we're supposed to be. We knew what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be in our neighborhood, in our own community. Is where we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to be on St. Charles Street, only unless we cross it.
And I'm gonna cut you off now because that's very important what you just said, and we've got 20 minutes and Jordan's gonna get up here, so and I've got some questions. But I want to end it there for now, and then I'm gonna ask you some questions. I know that you're giving me the look of death, but it's important for the audience to understand the importance of the integrity of the neighborhoods in New Orleans and your role. And your role, well, I'm not sure. We can talk about that, but in the role that you all play in maintaining those neighborhoods and the continuity around the rituals that takes place through the Indian culture and through some of the other activities that Melanie was referring to, especially in pleasure clubs and a lot of the other cultural activity. So I want Jordan, I'm going to get back to you. I want Jordan to show the audience his Closer Walk program, and then I've got some other questions that will allow you to touch.
I'll do that.
Yes, I'll do that. Thank you. Sorry.
Wait, no, so he'll be back soon because my presentation is like trapped in a 10-year-old computer and not able to be projected. So,
Okay,
I'm going to do a quick version of this, and then I kind of just want to hear more of Chief.
Thank you, Jordan.
Okay. Hi. So I edit a website. It's a closerwalknola.com. Closerwalknola.com. You can type it on up on your personal electronic device right now. So what a Closer Walk is an interactive map of New Orleans music history. And as Ashlye was just suggesting, there's a really important tie between certain geographies of the city itself and the evolution of New Orleans music and culture. And New Orleans as a city really doesn't do anything to promote that, celebrate that, document that. We have more landmarks unmarked and rotting, I think, than most other cities have, period. And with all due respect to Mississippi, I mean, there's like towns in Mississippi on the Blues Trail where there's like new hotels popping up and all this kind of development. And New Orleans, it's just been like 60 years. New Orleans still hasn't figured out that it kind of invented rock and roll. It like got the birthplace of jazz thing in the 30s, and there's like, we're set. So what a Closer Walk is designed to do is to highlight some of these historic sites and to do it in a way that contextualizes the kind of cultural activities that Chief Howard's talking about that happen there, and to demonstrate the relationship between certain physical places and music that really came from a street level in New Orleans neighborhoods and permeated popular music everywhere. I would love to point to stuff on the map to demonstrate that. You can take my word for it that it's there. But we hope to do a few things with this project, of which WWOZ is an important partner. Besides highlighting some of the, like the Dewdrop Inn, for example, famous venue of the Chitlin Circuit, J&M Studio, where Fats Domino, Little Runner, where Tutti Frutti was recorded. Huh? Oh, snap. Hey, all right. So yeah, these are some places on the map. There's about 105 of them now. We're sort of methodically adding all the time. And you can search by genre, by time period, by geographic area. And the notion here is to, besides dealing with the places themselves, sort of deal with cultural identity. New Orleans neighborhoods are going under, as many cities are, some pretty drastic demographic shifts. Central City, where Chief Howard comes out on Mardi Gras, is gentrifying at a rapid clip. And we want new residents of these neighborhoods to have some sense of the context of the traditions that are playing out on their doorsteps. We don't want people to call the cops when a second line comes by. Some people do that. And we want to make accessible information and imagery that hasn't ever really been accessible. I mean, you see these old images, they're in archives that no one ever really looks at. God bless the archives for maintaining them and giving them license for us to use them. But information about New Orleans is kind of hard to find. Like good contextual information is really hard to find. And so we're trying to consolidate it, make it accessible to everyone, and use it as an advocacy tool, either for preserving a physical space like the Dewdrop Inn, which is falling apart, or in advocating for the right of Mardi Gras Indians or socially and pleasure clubs to occupy space that they've been occupying in their rituals for over 100 years. And I'll leave it there so we can have some discussion.
Great, thank you so much, George. That's awesome. And I love this program. I think it is just, I had 2 minutes. I think it's a wonderful tool, and I encourage all of you to visit the website, especially if you're planning on going to New Orleans. Jordan touched on the role of this program as an advocate, right? And one of the points that I wanted to drive home was that, and after listening to Chief Howard and Melanie and Jordan, I hope that you have a better appreciation that we're all acting as producers, promoters, advocates, and resources just by doing what we do, right? And I think that I don't think that is necessarily unique to New Orleans, but it is certainly something that works in New Orleans. So again, Jordan was alluding to the fact that our city has not necessarily embraced a lot of the cultural activity that has gone on in the past. Things are a little bit better now, which is something that I want to ask Chief Howard more about. But part of the reason why things are better is because of the role that all of us play as advocates for each other, resources for each other. And that's part of what the Ella Project offers to musicians, culture bearers, and artists in New Orleans through direct legal resources and business resources and other advocacy and cultural policy engagement tools. So we're all very interconnected in that way. I'm going to ask you, and just this answer as briefly as you can, but I want you to go into St. Joseph's Night 2005. So, as Chief Howard said, St. Joseph's Night is one of the nights where the Indians come out to the neighborhoods to practice their rituals. And in 2005, there was a major unfortunate incident where police, the NOPD, committed a lot of brutality against the Mardi Gras Indians and women and children. It was all captured on film. There was no contest. It happened, and it was very much a symptom of a greater problem that was part of a tension that had been going on for years. And today, there is a much better relationship between the Mardi Gras Indian community and the NOPD and other government agencies. Why? What did it take to get you there? And go into what happened briefly, and what it took to to turn that around?
Well, what happened was that the police came out and disrupted what we was doing at the time for no apparent reason at all, because of being upset about some choices that we made not to go and participate in other things. So they came in and disrupted mayhem and women's children, even some our members was arrested. But what the bottom line of it all, that people like Ashlye, WWOZ, we all came together and challenged that because it was unjust what was going on. And at the time we went to City Hall and challenged it, one of our great leaders caught a heart attack and fell dead there in the city council. At the time we was there challenging because he got up out of his bed, he was 80-something years old, he wasn't supposed to come. He said, yeah, I got to be there, I'm supposed to be there, I should be there. And when he got up to speak at the podium, he fell dead, took a heart attack and fell dead. From that, there was a lot of uprising in the city, and to get the police and the city council to get on the same page, and get the people who are not sensitive to what we do out there start to be sensitized, come to meetings and everybody meet and learn, because a lot of people was coming to our city that was working, didn't know anything about the culture or anything about what we're supposed to be doing out there and what we are doing out there. So when those people came in from different parishes working, they didn't know nothing about what was happening, so they approached it in an unprofessional manner, and this was the result of that. We lost one of our leaders, like she said, is some members was jumped on, arms broken, fights, and it was like going to war again at Little Bighorn or something. We back and fighting with the police department in this day and time.
But your organization worked hard.
Your organization worked hard with the police, and how did WWOZ and how did other organizations help support that?
Well, WWOZ, they make sure we got it out on the radio that what was going on, and they stand with us, they let us know that they could with us and was all behind us and what we're doing. So they helped make sure that we knew on the radio that what was happening. Just listen to the radio tell you what was going on with the medians, and everybody would come together, and they kept it on the air, making aware to other people around the world that didn't know, because WWOZ is around the world. It's not just in New Orleans.
So again, I mean, we have a resource here. You all provide content, your promoters, your producers, but you're also acting as an advocate. Melanie, tell us more about OZ's role as a cultural hub and more about what it means to be a guardian of the groove. Specifically, how has OZ worked to maintain, I have a better question, how has OZ worked to establish and maintain the trust not just of local stakeholders, but the international audience that comes to New Orleans and ultimately supports all of our work?
One thing that's been amazing about OZ's growth over the last couple of years is that it's folks largely that have come through the city and fall in love with New Orleans and then want to stay connected. And I talked about being listener supported, and over half of our support comes from outside the city. I think a lot of us in New Orleans tend to, there's so much happening all the time and it's free that I think we oftentimes take things for granted. One thing that's happening now is there's a lot of acknowledgement that we can't just take it for granted anymore. A lot of the systems that we're trying to build up to support the different art and culture that's going on. So if we don't, it's going to fall to the wayside. But one thing that OZ is doing now, by having this much larger reach, we're able to, our funding is growing, and that's enabling us to bring more support back to focusing on what's going on in the city. So while we have this increased reach and increased awareness, amplification of New Orleans culture, thanks to OZ, we're able to bring those resources back. And because OZ has this platform, one thing that's been interesting for me in my role is that I've been working with the tourism community more. People who are promoting the city's tourism, and Sherwood's right, like the city uses musicians and Indians and social and pleasure clubs to promote the city, but doesn't come back and support them that often. And that's starting to change, that's starting to pivot, there's a lot more responsibility, and one thing that we can do as a station is we get to talk to people and say, are you aware that if you use images without giving rights, it's like you're stealing someone's art, like you're putting a year's worth of work into this suit, and you're selling this image and putting it out there. And conversations like that are starting to happen, which is exciting, and it's an important one.
Well, and OZ's just been very much a part of that, and it's what I find to be extremely important from my role as an advocate and a lawyer and as a founder of the NOLA project is that, you know, when shit hits the fan, like with the Mardi Gras Indians and with other issues that most people would stay away from and most nonprofits wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, OZ will get political. And that's fine, and getting political and supporting the community ultimately benefits is part of your mission, benefits the community, benefits the content, and then having that platform with the international audience helps to support Chief Howard and his work because that puts pressure on the city. But without OZ, those folks wouldn't know about that. And that was actually super helpful in helping to establish better relations with the police. A local radio station helped to establish better relations with the police, not the government. And so that's something that all of you can learn from and apply in your own communities. Jordan, I want to get back to the tourism part, and I want you to talk about, if you will, how the Closer Walk program how it can intersect with cultural tourism in a way that might be more sensitive to the authentic traditions of New Orleans. Because cultural tourism is a hot topic, but it's also controversial in our city.
Right, yeah, so cultural tourism can be a little icky when it's like, hey, everyone come and look and sort of gawk at these people who are conducting their own ritual. And, you know, the way we've thought about that with the Closer Walk is to, one, we're only putting stuff online that's already been online. So we're not gonna draw people to us, we're not gonna say, like, I know Chief Howard holds Indian practice on Martin Luther King at this corner bar. That's not going on the map. You know what I mean? Because we're not trying to bring a horde, we don't want a tour bus to stop in front of that club. However, on Super Sunday at A.L. Davis Park, y'all are putting out a press release. And we said, okay, then the community itself has decided we want this to be accessible to other people. And then at that point, I feel like we can help amplify. The fact that we're looking at historical sites makes it a little easier because, you know, like Alex Chilton doesn't live in that apartment anymore. We're not sending someone in front of someone's house. But there's a constant negotiation between you want to be an advocate, but you don't want to make choices for the community about how you want the community to broker its own interactions with other folks. And so I see our role as just contextualizing how that has happened in the past, and to the extent that the current locations on the map do give people a chance to go to find culture, it's prioritizing the tradition bearer's own stories. So we send people to community museums like the House of Dancing Feathers, where they can talk to a practitioner. You know, we have links to memoirs written by the artist. So we're trying to amplify the community's voices and help people understand the historical background of how this stuff happened where it did. But we want to leave the interaction to the community itself.
Well, you were talking about our landmarks earlier, and I know that Buddy Bolden's house is included in the Closer Walk. Tell us how that might be important and relevant to today's conversation.
Well, so I was at City Hall the other day. The podium at City Hall has a plaque for Tootie Montana, the chief that died. So that happened in 2005. I didn't know this until I went to the city council chamber. When we stand at the lectern at City Hall, it has Allison Tootie Montana in his dates. He was the chief who passed away testifying against the MPD. So I thought that was him. I was impressed by that. Anyway, Buddy Bolden's house. Buddy Bolden, considered first jazz musician, on earth, and his house in Central City was purchased by the church where they intended to bulldoze it and make parking lot. Then someone told him that house belongs to the first jazz musician on earth, and it has been boarded up for 5-7 years now. And folks have made offers to buy the property or restore it. The church has not accepted any of those offers. So right now, there's a political question about what role does the city have to play in seeing that this landmark, like Louis Armstrong's house, was literally bulldozed to build City Hall, which, you know, is a pretty apt metaphor. And there's enough people that are hip to this now where it's not a foregone conclusion. However, neither is there a clear enforcement mechanism. And so what's happening now is sort of grassroots pushback of like, hey, this is too important to the world. People come, someone from Sweden testified at the city planning commission meeting.
That's awesome. And where do you think that person from Sweden got this information?
I would imagine WWOZ had something to do with it.
You think?
Yeah.
And if folks wanted to learn more about Buddy Bolden's house, they could go to your program, and that international audience is actually helping shape policy and regulations that are coming directly out of City Hall at the 2 Montana podium. Wow. Yeah. So that's what's working. I mean, all of that's working, and I'm so proud of that. Like I love talking with all of you because I love all of you. Sometimes you're hard to talk to, but it's, you know, the Big Easy. It ain't always easy living in the Big Easy, right? But we're onto something, right? And I think that the struggle is real, right? All of these communities that we've heard from are experiencing their own challenges, and I think that we have a good model for tackling those challenges. And they don't always work, but there is a lot that is working, and I think that, you know, the panel today demonstrates that. I just got notice that we have 10 minutes left, and I'm pretty confident people are going to have questions for you and for Melanie and Jordan. So I'm going to open the floor up for questions. Yes.
I'm from New Orleans. I have lived there since 1974, but I love, sorry. It's so wonderful to see you, and I'm so grateful for all that you've done, whether it's the Ella Project, the Indians. I wrote a paper in 1974 in college on Indians from my black music class, growing up with that, WWOZ. One program that I think is significant that I didn't hear you all mention, New Orleans Musicians Medical Clinic, and that's not found in most music cities and fulfills a wonderful need. Could somebody just briefly describe that?
I would like to tackle that. Yes, the musician clinic is very much needed, and we are happy that we are able to go to the doctor there. If you are social pleasure, if you're Mardi Gras, if you're jazz musician, if you're part of culture, you can go there and actually get medical attention there. And that was one of the powerful things that we had, along with the musician clinic that you all had down there, was supporting us as
Sweet Home.
As Home Sweet Home was also supporting the culture. When we first came back after the storm, you know, we didn't have any houses or anything, jobs, that we could go there and get fun, just help support us, whether it was rent, food, or even I know some people that went there and got the car straight. And so that was great. Along with the clinic, this also is a powerful tool that's working in our city now.
It is, and for those of you who don't know, the Musicians Clinic was founded in 1998, I believe, by a wonderful woman who was very much associated with Jazz and Heritage Foundation and WWOZ. And WWOZ promotes the clinic. Jordan has partnered with the clinic in the past. Chief Howard goes to the clinic for services. And they're also an official partner with the Ella Project. And they provide comprehensive medical care, whether you have insurance or not, to musicians, culture bearers, or anyone associated with the music industry. And they would be here today, but I couldn't bring everyone. So So come to our conference at Georgetown in late October, the last weekend of October, because they'll probably be present there. But yes, they're very important. Other questions? No one has questions? Come on. Go ahead.
I just wondered if I were to talk about how you are teaching transferring skills to youth, which I was fortunate to witness myself.
Sure. We have a youth program that we have started maybe about 10 years ago. What we do is the kids in the neighborhood and community can come in and learn how to build these suits, learn how to chant, learn how to sing, learn how to dance, because we think it's important that we get the youth involved, because our culture has been around now for over 200 years. I am a Creole Wild West. We're the first tribe. We date back to the late 1700s, early 1800s. So if we can get the kids involved, and hopefully they'll be interested to stay in it, that he can go on for another 200 years. So yeah, it's great to be involved in that youth program.
What does it take to operate the youth program?
Well, it takes funds.
And how do you get the funds?
Well, for the first 4 years of it, it came out of a few our pockets, and I'm broke, but we was able to get it done. We get very little money from the city, we get $2,500 I think from the Oil Council, but mostly from private donors.
And they're able to donate to you through your nonprofit, right?
Well, nonprofits.
And you got your nonprofit set up through?
Yes, through the NOLA project.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for Jordan. I'm from Macon, Georgia. We have a little bit of music history there. And it's for Jordan. I'm from Macon, Georgia. We have a little music history there. I'm very fascinated with Closer Walk. I'm actually involved in the revitalization of Capricorn Studios there, where classic rock or Southern rock was partly born. And I just would like to know more about how you got the momentum and what kind of measurable success you may have been able to measure from, how has it affected tourism? What kind of traffic are you getting on the site? Things like that.
So, momentum is an interesting question. This project started in 2012, and then it lasted for like 9 months and sort of petered out and was dormant for several years until a funding source showed up. So momentum has been halting, and it's been uphill. I mean, it's all been privately funded by various grants, and it's 5 different entities. We also were fortunate to get a huge income contribution from the media company to build out the site. So it was uphill for years and tough. Traffic is up a little bit each month. We've only been online 11 months. We have not yet, and I need to talk to Melanie at lunch or something. Tourism hasn't quite figured it out yet. Right now, we've got WWOZ listeners, for example, finding us online. All of our location pages tend to be high up in Google search results. We're getting a lot of traffic from people all over the place who aren't necessarily physically coming in, because it works on GPS, right? You go around with your phone, you can find stuff near you. We're not seeing that happen in huge volume yet. What we're seeing is that anyone who finds it is like, oh man, this is so cool, how come they haven't done this before? And then we tell the Convention and Visitors Bureau about it, and they're like, hey man, that's awesome. Like, cool.
That's it.
That's it. So it's in process, we feel confident that when people engage the content, they have a good experience, and so we're fortunate that we've got this coalition of 5 different entities, and we're bootstrapping until people wake up.
Yeah, well, and I just want to amen that, but also drive home again. I mean, the theme of the panel is that you've got the 5 entities. OZ is one of them. Ponderosa Stomp Foundation. What are the other 3?
The Ruth Fertel Foundation, Bad Media, Different Media.
Okay, great. And Fertel's one of our funders. But not the New Orleans Tourism and Marketing Corporation.
Not yet.
Not the tourism folks. Hopefully, at some point. But again, I mean, we're not relying on government, we're not relying on the tourism sector to promote what folks come to New Orleans or think they're coming to New Orleans to experience. So we gotta do it ourselves. And Jordan's done a hell of a job without any traditional resources.
Thank you.
I guess that's a wrap. Thank you all.